He's always been paranoid.
Hands in plain view.
What the hell?
Oh my God.
You're under arrest by order of the United States government.
I want to see a warrant.
Noted. Now move.
We are talking Deep in the Forest, and this one is directed and co-written by Jeremy Dillon Laney, and is kind of a action movie without action, a thriller movie that isn't thrilling, a drama with no real drama in it. Hard to quantify this movie, but the premise is quite an interesting one. So essentially it takes place in America, and it's kind of a hypothetical second civil war between the American left and the American right. The kind of Republicans and Democrats got to the point where they can get along no longer, and they are going to war. And that kind of makes it sound like you're going to have this discussion where we're going to focus on different ideologies and how they are kind of clashing in this kind of hypothetical scenario, which was quite interesting. I thought maybe you'll kind of see like almost like an equal sort of time spent on each kind of side to try and give you these kind of counterbalancing kind of philosophies and things like that. It's not what you get. The actual story focuses on a group of people who are all on the kind of the left, and they are part of this, I forgot what they've actually called it. It's some type of kind of political club where they kind of go and discuss various kind of local problems ultimately, and they are targeted by the government at the time in this movie, which is a Republican government. So they are targeted for being kind of dissidents essentially, and are whisked off and hidden in this kind of like remote house in the middle of the woods for their own safety. And we kind of get a group of individuals there from kind of different kind of walks of life, but all who are a part of this particular kind of democratic kind of club. And the movie really is just these people discussing various issues that are to do with kind of political ideologies, but also just kind of frictions within the group as well. For example, there's a guy, like a caretaker, who just comes round to, look at the property, I believe, but he's actually kind of a Republican on the right. So they kind of kidnap him, but there's like, what do we do with him? And there's people who think they should let him go. There's people that they think they should kind of like, hold him until the kind of the war is over, things like this. So we have these kind of conflicts within this kind of group, albeit they're all supposed to be on the kind of, broadly speaking, on the kind of the same side, at least kind of politically. And that is the movie, it's this group of people discussing this kind of situation, what they should do, but it isn't always about kind of political. It's like, should they stay in this house because they have dwindling supplies, so they kind of risk kind of going out, and that is it. So it's really just a kind of a political discussion more than a, like I've said, an action movie. There's not really any type of action kind of sequences in it. It never really gets kind of any type of like tension or anything like that. What can I say that does work in this movie's favour? I have to say it's an intriguing idea. I think the actual idea behind this movie is certainly an intriguing one, and I would certainly argue that certainly America seems as divided as it ever has been, in kind of non-war times, to be honest. So this kind of stretch that it could go into some type of second civil war, I feel it's not like too out of the realms of implausibility to some degree. And I think it's certainly just an extension of divisions that are already kind of in America. And a film kind of like that kind of tackles those issues, I think it's certainly kind of an interesting one. I also like the fact that our kind of group of kind of characters, this kind of people who are all broadly politically kind of aligned, still have issues together, and they're still arguing between the group of them. So they're not all, even though they are maybe aligned politically, there are certain personality types and points of view within that kind of do kind of clash and end up, so we don't have a completely kind of copacetic kind of living situation, which obviously shows you that people are multifaceted, and obviously there are going to be times where they're not always going to agree on everything, which I thought was again kind of a good idea. The opening of this movie is I would say, is probably the strongest part, where these kind of military types are kind of like basically arresting people purely for their kind of political stance. It's kind of this stark kind of reality, and it's we see this in kind of other kind of countries, and the idea being that it's obviously transferred into a country like America is obviously kind of a scary thought. But again, it's maybe not too far removed from the a potential reality that you could imagine potentially happening in the future at kind of some point. But I've got to be honest with you, this movie was a little bit of a disappointment. Here's what I think is the main budget, which is somewhat out of the movie's control. It is an extremely low budget film, and it cannot afford to do any type of action sequences, show any kind of footage of this kind of like this war that is happening outside between the American left and right, and is unfortunately even within the kind of the confines of this one location, this house. Again, it all seems kind of just very kind of low budget without any type of anything really happening on screen outside of discussions. Now, it might be okay, because you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm still interested in a kind of a dramatic movie that has, interesting kind of subjects and things like this. But unfortunately, it's marred by the fact that the actors here are a mixed bag, shall we say? I think there's a couple of like faces that I did recognise, but a lot of the actors, I gotta say, feel like they are somewhat inexperienced. If you see where I'm going with that one. So the acting isn't particularly good, nor do I think the script or the dialogue is particularly strong. So I think a movie like this could potentially kind of work in regards to if you had strong writing with and the delivery of the performances were strong. But again, it's just kind of like it's just not quite there, and it might be the fact that obviously it's such a low budget, they can't afford actors who have a lot more experience, and therefore you're getting somewhat kind of inexperienced actors that struggle to kind of deliver any real pathos in the kind of the line delivery and kind of things like that. There are also some kind of that typical kind of things that are going to happen. We've got a kid out playing, of course. We get people who shouldn't be there going to turn up, and they're scrabbling around to find them. And there's an ending here which is meant to be quite poignant, but I don't think it really had the impact that it thinks it does. It's to me, in my opinion, without spoiling the ending, it's kind of somewhat matter of fact. I don't think you better be this heart-wrenching conclusion, but I don't know if it really played out like that, if I'm being completely honest. And there's also missed opportunities, I think, to have this kind of the idea that I thought it was, where it would be a movie that would kind of show both kind of sides of the coin, which it really doesn't. We only really have one character who is kind of on the American right, who's this guy that they sort of kidnap, and he's just kind of like just shouting abuse all the time. So you don't really get much in the way of kind of decent kind of character interaction with him, to be honest with you. So it really just feels like there was an idea here, but it simply didn't have the budget or the vision to really kind of carry it off. And like I said, it's not a particularly kind of thrilling movie. I didn't feel there was much kind of tension in the film. I don't think the dramatic scenes would particularly kind of work, because, as I say, the actors and stuff, I don't feel really were able to kind of pull those scenes off. So it's kind of a movie that I feel doesn't really have much of an identity, really. It doesn't really fit into any particular character. It's not an action movie. It's not particularly a thriller by any means. I wouldn't call it a drama. It's more of like an idea for a movie that wasn't quite fully kind of realised. And I think he's kind of like the opening picture of film without it kind of going the full whack. So I'll give it some props for having, I think, the seed of a good idea here. And there are some elements, like I've said, about all these people who are politically aligned still, but not being able to completely kind of get on, which I did appreciate. But the actual film itself is kind of uninteresting, to be honest, and it strikes me as a missed opportunity for the most part. I'll give it a 3 out of 10. I just don't think it's particularly a strong movie in any real way. So I can't really give it even an average movie. I think it's poor in some aspects and never really hits any type of high in any kind of category, really. So 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.